Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying something simple but critical. Most people spend their lives trapped in what I call obvious thinking, seeing only what is right in front of their noses and assuming that's the whole story. And that is precisely why most people never get ahead, why most people fail to recognize opportunity when it's staring them in the face, and why even highly intelligent people can make extraordinarily foolish decisions. Today, I want to talk about something that seems abstract, something that makes people uncomfortable because it stretches the imagination, the fourth dimension. But I am not going to explain it in some arcane, mathematical way that only professors can understand. I am going to explain it in the way a bright high school student might, because often it's the young, curious mind, unburdened by dogma and conventional thinking, that can see truths the experts overlook. Picture, if you will, a flat, two-dimensional world like a sheet of paper where the inhabitants know only length and width and cannot conceive of height. For them, everything is constrained and their understanding of reality is limited. Then imagine that someone, maybe a clever student or a curious thinker, draws a cube. Suddenly, the inhabitants of this flat world begin to perceive that there is more than they had ever imagined. They see a glimpse of depth of a higher dimension. That, my friends, is exactly how most people encounter the world. They see only the obvious, and the obvious is easy. But the extraordinary, the remarkable, the game, changing truths exist in dimensions most people refuse to look at. The fourth dimension is not just a mathematical abstraction. It is a lesson in perspective, in foresight, in the ability to see what others miss. And that ability is what separates mediocrity from excellence, failure from success, and ordinary lives from extraordinary ones. You don't need to be a genius to understand it. You need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to question not what everyone else takes for granted. The high school student who can grasp this concept is not necessarily smarter than a seasoned professional. They are merely unafraid to think differently, unafraid to look sideways, unafraid to ask, what if? And that question, that refusal to accept limitations, is the seed of all innovation, all wealth, and all progress. Most people, even highly educated adults, operate in a flat world, chasing immediate results, ignoring the compounding effects of their actions over time. They make decisions based on convenience, emotion, or habit, and in doing so, they forfeit the benefits of foresight. But the person who thinks in the fourth dimension sees beyond the immediate, anticipates outcomes, connects dots across time and space, and makes choices that multiply advantages quietly but powerfully. Life, business, investing, relationships, all these areas reward those who see multiple steps ahead, who understand the layers and interactions that most people ignore. A high school student explaining the fourth dimension is doing more than teaching geometry. They are teaching a mindset that recognizes that time and actions compound, that small errors today become disasters tomorrow, and small intelligent actions today become enormous advantages tomorrow. It is not complicated, it is simply disciplined thinking, and it is accessible to anyone who will cultivate curiosity, patience, and rationality. Consider this. Most people believe intelligence is the most important trait for success. I disagree. The most important traits are patience, rationality, and a relentless commitment to avoiding stupidity. You see, being a genius is overrated. Avoiding dumb mistakes, seeing consequences, and acting with foresight is underrated. And that is what the fourth dimension teaches. It forces you to step outside your narrow view, to consider the unseen, to think not just in 3 dimensions of space, but in the dimension of time, consequence, and compounding effects. Every decision you make interacts with countless others, and if you fail to recognize those interactions, you set yourself up for predictable failure. Most people do not see it. Most people live like flatlanders on a sheet of paper, unaware that the cube exists. And that is why they are average, why they struggle, and why they never achieve extraordinary success. But those who grasp higher dimensions, the people who see the unseen connections, the hidden patterns, the long-term effects, these people navigate the world differently. They invest differently. They make business decisions differently. They treat relationships differently. And they act differently in every area of life. The power of thinking in higher dimensions is subtle but immense. It is not flashy. It is not immediately obvious. And it is almost always ignored. And yet, it compounds, just like money invested wisely over time, just like knowledge applied consistently. The advantages of seeing in multiple dimensions grow exponentially, quietly, invisibly, but unavoidably. The lesson from a high school student who explains the fourth dimension is simple. Do not accept the limitations that everyone else accepts. Question assumptions. Think differently. Anticipate consequences. Connect dots that others fail to connect. Most people spend their lives reacting. You must spend your life anticipating. Most people focus on what is in front of them. You must focus on what is beyond their vision. And it is not just about theory, it is about application. If you understand the fourth dimension in practical terms, you begin to see how your actions today ripple across time, how small, intelligent habits create enormous advantages, how mistakes compound into disasters, and how foresight creates opportunities that appear magical to those who lack perspective. The world is full of complexity, full of noise, full of people chasing the wrong things. But if you cultivate the habit of seeing beyond, if you embrace patience and rational thinking, you start to cut through the chaos to see the patterns that matter and to act with clarity and power. That is the essence of what the fourth dimension teaches, not just in math or physics, but in life itself. And here's the final critical point. Anyone can do this. Even a high school student, because it does not require credentials, titles, or experience. It requires curiosity, courage, and the refusal to accept the limits that society imposes on thought. You must learn to see not just the surface, not just the immediate consequences, but the web of cause and effect that stretches across time and circumstance. And when you do, when you embrace this way of thinking, you are no longer trapped in mediocrity. You are thinking in a way that produces compounding advantages in knowledge, wealth, relationships, and every aspect of life. The world rewards those who see what others cannot, who act in the dimension others ignore, and who cultivate the patience to allow compounding effects to work their magic. The fourth dimension is not an abstract, distant concept. It is a lens through which you can navigate life better than almost anyone around you. And if a young student can see it, then so can you. If you are willing to step outside your comfort zone, to think critically, to embrace patience, and to avoid the mental traps that ensnare most people. That is the lesson. That is the power. And that is how extraordinary results are created in a world where most people see only what is obvious and immediate.